Good day, Turks and Caicos. EJ Saunders here. It's been a week since the Premier presented our government's COVID-19 stimulus package. I've had an opportunity to do a deep dive on it and an analysis. I'm going to speak through that today. Hopefully, I'll be able to answer any questions that you may have or clear up any confusion. I apologize for the length of this, but here it goes. During her presentation, the Premier stated a few things. One, she said, in order to deliver our assistance, your government will run a deficit budget of over 100 million, draw on savings, borrow and establish a line of credit, that the Turks and Caicos government will be providing approximately 45 million in direct financial support and waivers of taxes, fees, and charges, and the government will be injecting 35.2 million from the development fund for capital projects. According to the Premier, there are 10,000 hospitality workers. To qualify for the assistance, they would need to have been laid off, ceased operations, or terminated since the 16th of March 2020. Now, many of these persons would not qualify because they would not meet the requirements of having been laid off by the 16th of March. But for the sake of this exercise, we have to assume the worst case scenario to see the impact of the government. So let's assume the 10,000 workers all qualify for the assistance. The cost to the government will be $12 million. According to the Premier, there are 1,261 self-employed persons working in the hospitality sector. To qualify for the assistance, they would have to stopped working by the 16th of March. Many of them probably will not qualify, but let's assume all 1,261 self-employed persons qualifies for the assistance. The cost to the government will be $1,513,200. So when the Premier said 15 million is to be made available in direct assistance to employees and self-employed within the hospitality industry, that is actually incorrect. The maximum it will cost the government is 13.5 million. Like we said, many of these persons will not qualify because they would not have met the requirement of having been laid off by the 16th of March. And so it's going to cost the government actually much less. According to the Premier, there are 2,000 micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises, MSMEs, operating within the hospitality sector. To qualify for the assistance, they would have had to shut down basically their operations by the 16th of March. The government is offering 2,000 for micro businesses, 3,500 for small businesses, and 5,000 for medium-sized businesses. Let's assume all 2,000 of the MSMEs qualify for the maximum amount of 5,000, and the cost of the government will be $10 million. As part of the stimulus package, the government is adding 500,000 to the welfare budget, to the social welfare budget, and this is mainly for persons who are unemployed or who in some way can't tap into the grants that they're making available for the persons who are working within the hospitality sector. To support villa owners who may want to refurbish their properties in the near term, the government is making available $5 million, an additional $5 million in concessions under the refurbishment policy. And so $5 million of this goes into the stimulus package because it's an additional funding that they're making available. To support businesses that cater to the hospitality sector, if there are any business owners' licenses are coming due within the next 3 months, the government is giving them a payment holiday until July. Now, while the payment holiday actually helps, this is not any cash that the government is putting into it, and this is not cash that the government is giving to them as grants, or nothing that they're putting into the economy. And so this cannot be considered part of the stimulus package. To help the people of Grand Turk, Salt Cay, and South Caicos, the government is waiving the water charge for April, May, and June. Now, the government didn't speak to a specific number, but the cost of the government based on the budget is approximately $178,000. To further help the people of Grand Turk, Salt Cay, and South Caicos, the government is writing off what they describe as long outstanding water bills. These are bills going back many, many years. Actually, these are bills that many persons think are uncollectible, that the government has no chance of collecting them. The government could possibly make the case that because persons owe this to the government, and now that they're writing off the money that they owe to the government, they can now get to keep. So the government can make a case that this is part money that they're making available to stimulate the economy. Now, the government spoke about having written off 9.7 million, but actually, and when you look into the budget, there's no reference to 9.7 million. There's actually a reference in the government's budget of total water arrears of 6.5 million. So when the Premier said that there will be a 9.7 million write-off of long outstanding water arrears, this figure appears to be incorrect, as their budget only reflects 6.5 million. And so 6.5 million can actually be put into the considered part of the stimulus package. To help hotels and restaurants and cater to the tourism sector, the government is waiving the payment of approximately $1 million in hotel, restaurant, and tourism taxes, HRTT, and deferring the payment of approximately $3 million in taxes for 3 months. The cost of the government is $1 million. Now, it must be noted that the hotel, restaurant, and tourism tax is not a fee paid by hotels and restaurants and government. It's a tax that the government charges to guests, and I quote, this is now based on the government's own materials, it's collected on behalf of the government by hotels and restaurants. So as it is not a fee paid by the hotel, there's nothing that comes off their cost. It's not part of their income. It doesn't belong to the hotels in any way. I don't understand why the government is saying, hey, this money you've collected on behalf of government, you can take it. But it's the government's prerogative, and so it can form part of the stimulus package. I must also point out that businesses have 21 days after the end of the month to pay the hotel, restaurant, tourism taxes to government. If the taxes for March are based on guest charges that took place in February, it's further reason why they should be paid to the government. But again, it's the government's prerogative, so it should go into the stimulus package, as they say that they're going to waive that and allow the hotels and restaurants to keep it. So $1 million goes into the stimulus package. To further help out hotels that cater to the tourism sector, the government is waiving the payments of approximately $1.3 million in accommodation taxes and deferring payments of approximately $2.6 million for May and June. The cost of the government is actually $1.3 million. Now, just like the hotel, restaurant, tourism tax, this is also not a fee paid by the hotels to the government. It's a tax that the government charges to guests, and the hotels collect it on behalf of government. So for the same reason why I'm a bit surprised that the government is saying, hey, you can keep that money that you had collected on behalf of government, I'm concerned about this. But it's money that the government is allowing the hotels to keep, so it also forms part of the stimulus package. To support the vendors at the hotel, the government announced plans to provide them with the relief. But so far, nothing has been announced. Now, it's very easy for the government to say, we're going to waive the charges, your rental fee for a number of months. And I don't know why they didn't say that, but I guess they're working on a package with the airport authority. So since nothing has been announced, nothing goes into the stimulus package. The Premier also stated that the government has allocated $35.2 million in new development funds. Now, in every budget going back forever, every year the government budgets capital projects. This is an ongoing trend because the government always has works to do. They've got roads to build, schools to repair, those sorts of capital projects. And so it's while the government didn't complete most of its projects last year, they had already budgeted $36.6 million in development projects, and they were planning on spending $47.5 million in this upcoming year. So this is a new cash that they're making available to stimulate the economy. So even though the Premier announced it and spoke about it during her stimulus package, this is not a part of the stimulus package. There's nothing being done here to stimulate the economy. These are not new funds, and so they're not considered part of the stimulus package. The Premier also stated that approximately $30 million in projects will be carried forward from last financial year, which ended yesterday. These are projects that are in last year's budget, but they weren't completed, and they're now being rolled over into this financial year. Now, it must be pointed out that even though $30 million worth of projects didn't get completed last year, and the government just announced that they're going to be giving you another $35 million worth of projects for this year, the government is attempting to complete $65 million worth of projects this year when they couldn't get 30 million of their projects completed last year. And this year, it's expected that the COVID-19 pandemic will keep the world on shutdown for at least 3 months. So the government is attempting to complete $65 million worth of projects within 9 months, at best 9 months, and they couldn't get $30 million of their projects completed when they had 12 months. But I wish them luck. But as we said, for the new capital projects of $35 million, these are new funds. These are funds that are just being rolled over. So these funds aren't being made available to stimulate the economy. So they don't form part of the stimulus package. The Premier stated that to boost inward investment, the government gave a 50% reduction of planning fees for a period of 3 months. And even though they didn't speak specifically the figure based on the budget, this is expected to cost the government approximately $119,000. The Premier said that 2 million is being made available to the Ministry of Health. That's 2 million additional is being made available to the Ministry of Health. And this is welcome news. And I hope that a portion of it is used to purchase ventilators and COVID-19 test kits so we can do our testing on islands. These funds are not being used to stimulate the economy. And as a result, they're not actually part of the stimulus package, even though the Premier announced it during a stimulus package speech. The government stated that the Turks and Caicos Islands Contingency Fund has been increased to 7 million. That's an additional 2 million. But these funds are not being used to stimulate the economy. And as a result, they're not part of the stimulus package. So before waivers on duties for basic food items and essential medical supplies for 2 months, a reduction of 50% on stamp duties, and a waiver on customs duties on construction materials for 3 months, the stimulus package, including direct spending and foregone revenue, will cost the government approximately 38 million, not 45 million. Based on all of this, the breakdown is this. The government is spending approximately 37% of its stimulus package on cash grants to individuals, hospitality workers, and self-employed persons. 26% is going to cash grants for micro, small, and medium enterprises. 17% on bad debt write-offs. That's the bad debt write-off of the long outstanding water bills for Grand Turk, South Caicos, and Salt Cay. 13% towards stimulating inward investment by giving concessions to mainly to villa owners, and 6% on cash grants to hotels and restaurants. These are the taxes that they collected on behalf of government, and government is allowing them to keep. I hope I was able to answer any questions that you may have or clear up any confusion. I pray that you and your loved ones are keeping safe, and I pray for your the speedy recovery of anyone who's suffering from the COVID-19 virus. May God bless you, and may He continue to bless us during these trying times.